Today on the AJ podcast, we talk about going cheap versus investing in certain types of gear like surfboards and rain jackets. And then I get some advice on how to know if you're fit enough for a trip, like a bikepacking trip, my first ever that I've been planning. And our main topic is about pooping on Mount Everest. It's going to be a new rule where you got to carry your poop out with you. And then we play some overrated, underrated, where bodyboarding gets a well-deserved shout out. Enjoy the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Adventure Journal podcast. I am your host, Stephen Casimiro. With me is Justin Hausman, tapping in from the Marin Tourism Board. And also with us is our producer, Jackson Casimiro, no relation. Welcome, Jackson.
Hello.
Interesting. I could have sworn you guys were related somehow. I guess
I
that's
don't
my
know.
mistake.
We've been talking about doing 23andMe and seeing if we're distant, maybe distant.
Surprise.
So we're gonna kick off today. Well, we're gonna talk about everybody's favorite. We're gonna have some potty humor a little bit later in the show, but we're gonna start with some questions from the young Mr. Casimiro here.
Yeah, so for tackling gear today, we're going to try out this format called cheap or invest, which basically for every one of these gear items, is it something that, obviously if you're on a budget, is it a place to cut some corners and get a cheap option or to invest in a high quality one? And I wanted to give a shout out to Cade Media and their podcast Wild Ones for giving me this idea. So, gentlemen, for each of the following items, let me know if you would cut corners, save a buck, or invest. First up, camp chairs.
Like car camping? Not backpacking, obviously.
Car camping, yeah. Backpacking, I think you would go cheap with a rock probably, or a log.
Yeah.
Well, I like log. Justin's staring up at his ceiling since you can't see him. He's
Thinking.
looking to the heavens for
looking for the
inspiration.
answer.
Well, I
God,
just
what would you do?
as we kick this off, I will just say, there's probably you're familiar with the saying, cheap, light, or durable. Pick two. So you're not going to be able to get all of them. While Justin is ruminating on this, I'm going to go with cheap. Although, dang, I said that and then I immediately flashed on all the cheap chairs I've broken.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. It also depends on what you mean. I mean, like I wouldn't take like a garage sale, one of those sort of, I don't even know what you call it, but it was like crisscross of fabric, like those kinds of like
thatching.
cheap. Yeah, like I wouldn't do that. Obviously, I wouldn't cheap out that much. But like I think I'm trying to remember how much my go-to camp chair is the REI Kingdom Rocker. I don't even know if they still make it, but I think it was $90, which is not cheap, but it could be a lot more. And I've lived that. I don't even put them inside anymore. They're just in the rain. Like I don't really think about where they are, and they still work great. So I don't know. But I could have paid a lot more for them.
Didn't you lose your Kingdom cot to the rain?
I did. That one.
Okay.
That was.
So kids.
Yeah.
We're recommending that you don't do this at home. Don't
please
leave
put your stuff
chair
away. Put your
out.
stuff away.
Yes.
But I don't intentionally leave them out, but it happens. But they're fine.
Okay.
But I consider those cheap.
So pick. You got to pick because we got to move on.
I guess cheap. I guess I would also say cheap, just not too cheap.
Okay, we're cutting corners on camp chairs. Next.
Do you remember, sorry, what, you have Woods Canada now, right?
I do have Woods Canada, and they were not what I would call cheap. They're also heavy, but they are the most comfortable chairs I've used.
About how much for those?
I want to say, 90, 100.
90 seems fine. Like you can spend 200 easy on a camp chair. So I'd say 90 counts as kind of being cheap. That's a budget chair.
Okay. Compared to Snow Peak has nice chairs that are closer to like 200. Okay.
Yeah.
So, more so for you, Justin, surfboards.
Oh boy. It depends. I mean, if you're talking for a beginner, somebody who just thinks they want to get into it, anything that will float. I wouldn't. The bigger, the better. If you could find an airplane wing, that'd be ideal. I would not spend any money at all. I would rent if you're just
My
trying
first
to
board was
start.
$35.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what you're looking for. I mean, one, surfing is really hard, so a pretty good chance you're gonna go, this sucks, and never do it again. But yeah, I would just anything cheap and floaty, preferably really really soft would be my call there. No reason to buy one. I mean, you can if I went right now on a Craigslist in Northern California, I'd find 150 soft tops for sale. I'll sell you one. I got a ton of soft tops in my driveway.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I mean,
cheap.
growing up, the Wave Storm from Costco, $99 flat.
Yeah,
That
probably still the
was
cost $99, I think.
Does
Maybe
it
150.
really?
It might be 150 now, but it's still around there.
Yeah, but I mean that was such a canonical starter board.
Yeah, those are terrible. I mean, they're horrible. But you can kind of surf on them if you have to. I mean, surfboards have gotten really expensive. I mean, some of the ones I'm looking at right now are about $2,000 that I'd like to get.
Oh, I
I'm
didn't
not going to
realize they were
spend
that
that.
much.
It's, I mean, they're finally getting like shapers are finally getting paid what they actually should for boards. I mean, it's a labor intensive process and the stuff all costs a lot. But yeah, I mean, surfboards have gotten wildly expensive. Even just off the rack now, you're looking at $800. So yeah, if you're just, I mean, honestly, I've been surfing for 30 years. I don't need new boards. I mean, old ones are fine. I mean, you can get away with way less. Surfing should just be fun. You shouldn't be something you're like, getting too technical about. Cheap, go cheap. Support your local shaper if you get good and you want to buy like a good board, but otherwise go cheap.
I wasn't asked, but I would go cheap and I would go used.
Yeah. Always used boards.
Next up, headlamps.
Depends on your use. So are you planning on, pushing the boundaries of what some people would say is common sense or safety, and maybe you're having to navigate at night? Are you an alpinist and do you live in the Northeast and you're going ice climbing? I mean, if you're an average, a typical car camper, then, I would say medium cheap. I wouldn't say cheap. But if you're a core user, then, you can get such great quality headlamps now for not spending a ton of money. Whereas in the early days, I remember when they first kind of came out and they just looked like miner's lamps. I mean, they were expensive and they were heavy, and, you got them because you were ice climbing maybe at night and it was going to be really cold. Now, I mean, I think $35 to $50, you can get a great, really solid headlamp. And then you probably don't even have to spend 50.
I mean, BioLite ones are like $35 or $40 for some of theirs, and they're pretty good. I would say you should probably. I mean, I don't, unless you're going to be doing a lot of running or something like that. Like, I don't think I would get the kind that have like the strap over the middle of your head. Which are, usually that's when you're starting to look at some, multi-$100 headlamps. But I would spend the most that you're comfortable with a headlamp, because you never. I mean, they're not really going to break. You may find yourself really needing a lot of extra lumens at some point. I mean, like, I could see why you'd get a cheap one and just be like, this is fine. But what if all of a sudden you decide you want to go night hiking, or you want to, I use my headlamp when I go night riding, even though it's not, I have bike lights too, but I'll use my really good headlamp for that. So I think there might be more use cases than you would imagine. It's also nice. I mean, it's nice having a nice headlamp. They're usually more comfortable. They have more features. So I wouldn't splurge, but I would say like, as much as you're possibly comfortable spending. I think it's worth it for a good headlamp.
Okay. Yeah, because really, like, the notion behind the segment is what kinds of items do you really see long-term quality of life benefits if you were going to splurge?
Well, all of these things, really. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you spend more on a chair, you're going to get a chair that's going to last you longer. You spend more on a headlamp. Surfboard, not so much. If it's a fiberglass board, I mean, a fiberglass board is a fiberglass board. One doesn't have more longevity than the other, really. But in these other kinds of products, that it does. And so I really think that one of the really important factors is being honest with yourself about how you plan to use it, how you are using what you have now, not how you think you're going to use it.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So I always try never to get something because I think that I might want to do that. I always want to, borrow or, get cheap used until I have a better sense. So that's why I would say I think that's a place where you could cut corners. But, for me, I want to have a great headlamp. But I mean, are we talking somebody who's just car camping and they're kind of a beginner? I don't think you need to spend a lot and you can get a really nice device.
Mhm. So let me throw one out more to kind of tease this idea out a little bit more. So rain jackets.
I think those are worth spending money on if you are going to be either backpacking or riding a bike in the rain, and you want something that can crumple up really small and that you're not going to worry about it wetting out. I think rain jackets are worth it. I mean, you can get by with a poncho too, but man, I like my really nice rain jackets. That's not something I would necessarily cut corners on. But I'm also out potentially, in the rain for a really long time, whether it's a bike ride or whether it's backpacking, and I can't really like screw around with getting wet. So I think that's worth saving money on. Plus,
Yeah.
you'll be comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. A quantified agreement. It depends. It depends on your use. It depends on where you live. So if you're down in a place that's generally warm, there's not probably a huge downside if you get wet. If you live in a place where it's in the, you're going to be out in the high 30s, and hypothermia is an issue, then it becomes that much more critical. Are you just out for a day hike, or are you multi-day? Are you in a wall that if it starts to ice up and you're trying to rappel, like the story that we did a few issues ago in AJ, where these guys got caught on a wall in the Sierras, and it was this storm came in and it was pelting them with freezing rain, and they didn't have a lot of gear with them, and it became a life or death situation. So I would say the qualified is that you don't need 3-layer Gore-Tex. I mean, there are certainly cases where you're going to want that, but I think there are a lot of now off-brand fabrics, off-the-shelf fabrics that brands can put their own spin on them, that do great. And I also think there are a lot of really good DWR, durable waterproof, water resistant coatings that will enable you to stay dry for a long time. And then the other thing is, anybody who's ever used Gore-Tex or a 3-layer, this idea of waterproof, breathable is pretty laughable, because the way that those things work is that there has to be the temperature and humidity differential between the outside and the inside. So what's next to your skin and the outside, and in order to push that humidity out, and it can very quickly get overwhelmed. So if you were trail running, you'd be soggy, pretty quickly. You would have water coming in, but you would overwhelm the ability of that moisture to escape. So I think you also have to be realistic about what these things can do and not do.
Yeah.
I'll throw my fiance under the bus.
Oh,
Aaron, no.
One thing that we've been together long enough that I have been able to see her go through pairs of cheap boots. And I didn't ask it because I think we would all agree that something like boots, like spending that more like $200 price point, I think will pay for itself easily by the amount of cheap boots you would go through instead.
I mean, I'd up that to like 300, but point stands, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a boot guy, so I'm team heaviest boot you can get away with all the way, mostly for that reason. I hate getting rid of shoes. Hate it.
Yeah, I mean, think about where you're using them. It's where the rubber hits the road. I mean, it's on the ground, it's rocky and whatever. I mean, you could milk an affordable off-brand water-resistant jacket for many years.
Yeah.
But you can't really mince your way around, like if you're around sharp rocks and whatever. So I also think too that there's going to be more. The better brands are going to, even though their insoles are still going to be, worth pennies, you're probably going to get better support, more comfort than if you get an off-brand. Although, I mean, I do have to say her boots always do look cute. So when we go for hikes, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it's like tires on a car. That's like the thing that you should splurge on first, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, for anything outdoorsy.
Yeah. You don't see the synthetic coating starts rubbing away on the inside. They don't hold up, and it's not like they're $20 or something. I think that's clearly going to hit the curve. Okay, so for our next segment, this was this idea I've had where I really lean on my inexperience and your experience to kind of ask some 101 questions. Some, uh, as I go on my journey into the outdoors and try to take on bigger trips or new sports, I oftentimes kind of just need to ask advice. And so, why not try to do that on the air? And today's question is something that's been on my mind a lot recently, which is about fitness. Just your level of athleticism as it relates to what you can do outdoors. And the way that I'm asking that for me, my kind of specific case, I would like to go on bike packing trips, and it's really hard for me to assess if I'm going to be fit enough because I've never ridden my bike fully loaded down with the kind of uh, terrain and elevation and everything that I would expect from some of these trips that I would go on. And short of actually loading down your bike all the way and trying to replicate that distance and time
Just
and
just do that. Just do
climbing.
that. I mean, that's the answer. Just do that.
So
So is
I have a
that
question.
the
Did you not have parents that taught you? And did your father not like teach you these things when you were a child? Like you seem to have this deficit of knowledge. You clearly were underparented or something when you were growing up. So your question is, how do you know if you're fit enough to pull something off?
Yes, short of actually replicating the whole effort
Yeah, yeah, right.
at home.
Well, first off, you can't, and you won't be fit enough. I mean, that's my two lessons after a lifetime is you never will be fit enough, and you can't know if you're fit enough. And it's going to be a series of, putting yourself in the pain locker, and then you'll get out there and you'll ultimately have to decide, am I going to be able to do this, or am I too exhausted and I have to turn around? And you don't know what your personal limits are and comfort levels and discomfort levels are until you get out there. That said, you train for things, ride hills and load your bike and just start to experiment. And then also, bite things off that that you can do. Like Jackson and I are planning a bike packing trip. We both he turned me on to this Canyon Grizzle gravel bike and that he bought. Great price. So we both got on it when it was on sale. And so we're just going to do something kind of locally that's maybe 1,000 feet of climbing and I don't know, 6 miles. It's steep and that's not going to be any fun, but I mean, if we had to walk it, our bikes, we could do that. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great test and we'll teach you. And so that's why I would say whether it's a backpack or a bike pack or whatever, I mean, you kind of got to go do it. And the other thing, and then I'll be quiet and let Justin dive in here, is I think being really thoughtful about what you take and then what you use and what you don't use. I'm really kind of obsessive when I go on trips and thinking about what I take and then making notes throughout the trip of what I used, what I overpacked, what I didn't have that I wanted, all those sort of things, so you can learn from it for the next time you go out.
Well, I agree with all of that. I would also say that I don't think I've ever been on any kind of big endurance-y pursuit and not been like, holy shit, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. Like no matter how fit I was at the time. And I think I'm a big believer in just bumping up your confidence going into this sort of thing. And so you're not going to be able to replicate a gnarly bike packing trip just in your neighborhood. I mean, obviously you can't. But if you put 50 pounds on your bike and ride it up whatever hills you find all day, or 3 times a week for 2 months before you leave, yeah, you might not. You're still going to get really tired and be like, God, this sucks while you're doing the actual trip. But at least you have the confidence to know that you kind of tested your limit. You've pushed through the hard part. You kind of know what it's going to feel like. Like I would hate to be shocked on a trip that like, wow, I am wildly unfit. Like that would be like a trip ender for me. So, I'm the guy that you will see, even though you can't go backpacking around here, in about a month when the rain finally stops. I'll be out, I don't even know if I'll go backpacking this summer, but I'm still going to be out there with water bottles in a backpack, trudging up and down the steepest hills I can find, so that if I do go backpacking, like my kind of body is ready for it. Yeah, I'm not going to be fit enough to do like a giant trip and not be exhausted, but at least, I'll be more comfortable in my own body as it's being run through the ringer. So that's all I just mostly train for that confidence.
Mhm. I do think it's great to set objectives for your training or just for working out for maintenance or health or whatever. And right now I don't know what exactly that goal would be. It's not really around losing weight. And I feel like planning for a trip and maybe doing the route planning and uh, aiming to do some percentage of the elevation gains or something like that might be just a way to gamify it and kind of structure your working out around training for a trip. Have you guys been anticipating trips and started working out kind of to prepare yourself for it?
I've done that with like the first time I did a hut to hut cross country skiing trip. I did that where I spent like a whole winter basically like going a little bit further, feeling what it felt like to be on my skis with a heavy backpack and increasing that weight, and then comparing it to how far I was going to go to the hut, how long it was going to take me, all that sort of stuff. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But again, it's also about confidence.
Yeah, I tend to just go. And I mean, I know that I think I'm at the point where I know that I know what I can't do for sure. Like there's some things that I wouldn't even think about biting off because I feel confident that I'm not there. And then there's other things that I know that I could do. And then there's the stuff in the middle that you kind of just have to go and sort of see. And it also depends on, are you by yourself? Are
Right.
you close to home? Are you going into the wilderness by yourself? Are you with other people? If you're with other people, are they the type of folks who, if you're flagging, are they going to be happy to slow down and go at your pace? Or are they, chargers and they're going to be upset that you're not fit enough? So, I mean, I think you just have to look at all of those other things. But at some point you just have to go, and I think if you go for one night short, try that. Go for one night long, try that, and you just start to work your way into it. And then I like what Justin says about confidence. When you start to get that under your belt, then you will feel better about biting off bigger things.
Also, I'm also a believer in just I go to the gym, to lift weights. That doesn't necessarily help me in my outdoor stuff necessarily, but like I want to be fit enough to do the things that I want to do at any given point. So I don't necessarily want to have to be like, oh, I'm going to go on a bikepacking trip. Okay, I need to like spend the next 6 weeks like really climbing grueling hills. Like I'd like to just kind of do that anyway, so that I'm more or less always ready. Because then you don't feel quite so like behind the eight ball if a trip is coming up. I mean, at this point, I feel like I could kind of do anything I've ever really done tomorrow if I had to, and that's the place I like to kind of live at fitness wise. I'm not a big, huge, fitness freak by any means, but I don't ever want to be caught flat footed. I just don't think I can hike 20 miles today or whatever it is. Like I want to be ready for any of that.
Mm-hmm. Have you I assume hut to hut was more important because you really have to be hitting those checkpoints on the times that you need to hit them.
Totally. Yeah, that was my big concern.
Yeah, I did the San Juan hut system trip, mountain bike from Telluride, Colorado to Moab, Utah. It's about, I don't remember. It's like 230, 240 miles, something like that. We did it actually, it's 300. We rode longer. But yeah, I was riding every day. I mean, I just got on the bike and I had to carry cameras and just did it, And so I agree with Justin completely. Like if you can, and this isn't easy for everybody. I mean, it's easy to say, it's hard to do, to be doing something every day or 5 days a week or whatever, to where you feel like you can just bite that off. I mean, that's the challenge that all of us have, right? Like we have jobs and we have kids and, we have these other things. And I think that we're all kind of to one degree or another in where you are, Jackson, which is, okay, I want to do this big stuff, this bigger stuff. How do I know? I mean, for me, the most motivating thing is remembering when I've been curled up in the ball on the side of a trail, sucking my thumb.
Totally. For sure.
Because I was just so knackered, or how I felt afterward. I mean, I would rather feel, exhausted every day at the end of my ride or run, and then be able to open up the fridge and, rejuvenate myself than to be, in the backcountry going, how miserable. I'm so miserable. So, and I would say most of my experiences, I mean, I've had so many Sufferfests, but I've also had so many trips where it's just like what Justin said, where it's just, that was good. Yeah. And also the other thing too, and then we should probably move on to our main topic, but which is that I think the more time that you spend doing these things, the better you are able to moderate your effort.
Yeah, exactly.
To pace yourself throughout the day. And that is one of the best things that you can do, because if you go slow enough, I mean, you may not be, there may be a too slow for safety, but there may be also a slow enough that you can go as far as you need to go. You just need to go a little bit slower. And I think people have a tendency to just go out of the gate like a rabbit and then they blow up, which is, you can pretty much within reason do anything if you just go slow and easy and get enough.
That might be the hardest. That might be the hardest thing, actually, is knowing that level of moderation. That combined with fueling yourself, like go for, I don't know how far your backpacking trip's going to be, but go for a long ride and like figure out how much you need to eat to go for a 40-mile ride, and how much you need to bring with you, that sort of stuff. That way you're not bringing way more food than you need or whatever.
Yeah, I failed the summit Orizaba, which is the third highest mountain in North America. Actually, it's in Mexico, and we climbed and skied down. And my friend Craig was there with us. He was in my wedding, and he was a smoker at the time. The dude never worked out. He was a great skier and a really good athlete, but he just never worked out. And I was really fit, and there were about 6 of us, and only 3 of us sort of made the upper mountain. And I was not eating. It was really hard to eat. I mean, the mountain's 18,700 feet, so it's super high. Base camp is at 14. And both Craig and Tom Burt summited, and I got to like within 500 feet, and I was out.
Yeah.
And they both said, afterward, like, well, yeah, we noticed that you didn't have like a really good rhythm, and a really good pace. I'm like, well, it's not your fault, but why didn't you tell me that
Right.
when I could have done something about it? Instead, now I'm down here going, I didn't make the top.
You should have had a couple cigarettes.
Maybe that was it.
Oh,
yeah.
And have good genes. That's also the crucial step. Is just have perfect, flawless fitness genes.
Yes, pick your
So
parents.
you can do
well.
whatever you want. Wouldn't that be nice?
All right. Well, I think we're going to take a break now. Are we all going to agree we're going to take a break? We are going to take a break. We will be right back. You love adventure, we love adventure, and that is why we created Adventure Journal in print. It is the gift that we've made for ourselves and for our friends, and hopefully for you, that is analog, that gets away from screens, that gives you some of the most interesting, deepest, and thoughtful stories from some of the best writers and photographers working in the outdoor space. We do 4 a year. You get free shipping and a deep discount. It's $60 to have this absolutely beautiful, no batteries necessary celebration of adventure in your mailbox. Get it at adventure-journal.com. I am drinking, it's gotten cold now because we're halfway through the show. I am drinking Long Weekend Coffee. We launched Long Weekend Coffee earlier this year to bring you and us blends that are not fussy, that will take any kind of brew method that we like, whether it's at home, in a cabin, on the tailgate of a truck, doesn't matter. We have 4 blends. We have dark, medium, espresso roast, and a decaf. I think they're pretty amazing. I guarantee you will like them. Check us out at longweekend.coffee. All right, welcome back, you filthy animals. We are about to talk about poop. Poop. Should poop have a P or no P, Justin? Is it poo rhyming with Winnie the Pooh?
I don't like poo. I don't like that.
Or is it poop rhyming with
It's poop.
coop? It's poop.
It's poop, right?
I don't know. Okay, well, why are we talking about poop? Aside from that, we're all still like 11 on the inside. We're talking about poop because if you go to Mount Everest and join the conga line on the South Col, you're going to have to bring bags and carry your own poop out. And I will just say that the BBC, being a mass media organization, the BBC has a style book, and the style book determines their punctuation, their spelling, all that sort of good stuff. The BBC has no P.
Really?
Oh, yep. It's poo.
You're right. That is, you know what? That's got to be a British thing. That's funny. I didn't even notice.
There are a lot of people trying to climb the highest mountain in the world every year. And man, they make a big mess. So it's not shocking to me that there are people that are pooping outside of poop tents. They're just pooping on rocks. They're pooping in the snow. That's not all that surprising. But what is surprising is that it is estimated now that there are, do I have this right? 3,000 pounds of human excrement.
3,000 tons.
Sorry.
No. I'm sorry. 3 tons. 3 tons. 3 tons. So 6,000.
Okay. I knew there was a 3.
Yeah.
Sorry. I can't read my own handwriting. 3 tons, which is 6,000 pounds of human excrement between the base camp at the South Col route and Camp 4 on the upper mountain. That's a massive amount. I mean, people say that Everest is a shit show, and it is quite literally a shit show. And now you're going to have to be required to take it out.
Isn't it a bit surprising that it wasn't already the rule?
Yeah, it kind of is. I think it speaks to the boom in high altitude tourism.
Yeah.
And the lack of preparedness for local authorities, to deal with it and to enforce it. And
even just for the guides though. And I mean, like I could be wrong. I'm fairly certain that like on Whitney, you have to take a wag bag or whatever.
You
it's
do.
not a wag bag. You know, like it just
And on
seems
Denali.
shocking to me that that wouldn't be. I mean, I think it goes without saying that AJ is team poop bag at this point, right? I mean, like I haven't dug a cat hole in years. I can't fathom going to a place as special as Everest and just pooping on the ground. That blows my mind that people are doing that.
Well, you have to put yourself in their boots. I mean, if you're at, 27,000 feet, you can, talk about trying to get a rhythm when you're walking up, and pacing yourself. I mean, we just interviewed Caroline Gleich when she's making this Senate run, for the open seat in Utah, and she's a Everest summiteer, and we talked to her about how long it would take her just to like put a boot on. So, the idea that you're going to go drop trow and then do what with it? I mean, you can understand it from just a human experience standpoint, but like that's disgusting. And the lead of this story, the quote is, "We are getting complaints that human stools are visible on rocks and some climbers are falling sick. This is not acceptable and erodes our image," said a spokesman. So, I mean, people are getting sick. Are they getting E. coli? I mean, what is...
Yeah, maybe are they melting snow and it has poop in it? I mean, I don't know. I guess.
So this is Mingma Sherpa, who is the chairman of the local municipality. And he said, he goes, "Our mountains have begun to stink." I mean, well, yeah. I mean, it's shocking. And I mean, I forget how many tons of oxygen canisters were left behind going back to 1953 when they first went up the mountain successfully. I mean, there are tons and tons and tons have been hauled out. And so,
well, people are going to be able to climb it at a certain point. I mean, at some point the government's going to just say, well, maybe not. They want the permit money, but I mean, it's just like you're pooping everywhere. You're leaving your crap up there. We already have like annual trash cleanups on Everest at this point. I mean, it's going to be impossible to climb that mountain eventually if we don't be a lot smarter about how we go about this. I also think it's interesting. I've never been up that high. I feel like I wouldn't be doing a lot of pooping at that altitude. I feel like I'd be so just laser focused and like stressed out about getting to the summit. I guess maybe that makes people poop. That was also something that occurred to me as I'm reading this. Like, I don't know that I'd be pooping at all on my Everest bit. I feel like I would just be locked down and just focused. But
yeah, I wouldn't count on that though.
Yeah. I guess I'll bring a bag when I eventually climb Everest because everybody else is climbing Everest.
So they're getting about 8,000 bags from the U.S. and for the 2024 season, they are expecting like 800 support staff and 400 foreign climbers for the spring season. So that's 1,200 people. Dropping 250 grams a day is their estimate. So, yeah, that's a lot. And so, okay, so my favorite / not favorite horrifying quote from this BBC story about this is, quote, "With that as the basis, we plan to give them 2 bags, each of which they can use 5 to 6 times."
Well, it freezes, right? I mean, you leave it outside. You presumably leave it outside. That could be not so bad. Boy.
All right.
Just seems obvious to me. I just still baffled that this hasn't always been the case.
It's overdue. It's overdue. I mean, come on.
Quit pooping on Everest. It's just quit it.
You know what? Quit going to Everest. I'm sorry.
That too. Yeah.
You know, like that's just. I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe here's a crazy thought, and maybe we should give some of these mountains a rest for a while.
Yeah,
like maybe Everest should just like have no climbers from either side for 3 years or 5 years. Maybe Whitney should get a year or 2 off without people on it, and just let the terrain just do what it's going to do without us.
Do we have places like that? I was thinking about this morning, oddly enough, not Everest and Whitney specifically. But are there wilderness areas where there are no people allowed, period?
No, but there are research areas. I think they tend to be, privately held. Like I know out here in the Mojave, the University of California system has a bunch of research areas that are just completely, some great places for climbing that are just closed because they're whatever they're doing. And then there's pretty common is climbing closures for nesting season for birds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've heard about that. That makes sense. It seems like something we should consider doing. Just letting places rest. Just nobody can go. I mean, a lot of these wilderness areas probably don't get that many people anyway. But I like the idea. I feel like it's a good. I don't know. It sets a nice tone for just respecting these places a bit more.
Well, it sets a nice value. But people are not going to do it. And I don't know how much research has come out of COVID, but I know that the restoration of things from the slowdown in human traffic, the dropping of sound levels. So all of a sudden we could hear birdsong that we never heard before. I mean, our impact is just extensive, and we're probably too selfish to really give nature a break, but we should.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of poop, actually, I think I wrote, did I do this for the website? I think I did this for the website and not for our beautiful printed quarterly, to which you should subscribe at subscribetoaj.com, nudge, nudge, that we are at the point now where there is enough human traffic on all public lands that we should no longer be digging cat holes. And we should just always be pooping it out. Yes, we should be pooping it out, and then we should be packing it out. And this is required in a lot of places in the desert that are exceptionally fragile. I mean, he's wag bags all the time. It's just not a big deal.
It's actually nicer, I think. I mean, like, I don't know. We're going to cover camping toilets at some point, but I find it to be just a much nicer experience than digging a hole all around. I mean, the bags are sealed. They're fine.
They're double bagged. So I haven't talked about this on the podcast yet, and I'm looking forward to talking about this on an episode soon, but I just bought an Airstream, a used Airstream. And one of the big considerations with the Airstream was the toilet and what to do about the toilet, because we got the smallest you can get. It's a 16-foot, and it's the most affordable. But it doesn't matter actually what size Airstream. The black water tank has enough capacity for 2 people for 3 days. So that means after 3 days, you have to take that trailer somewhere, and you have to put in the coiled hose, and you have to like dispose of it. And then you have to flush out the whole toilet with water like 5 times through this hose. So it's tremendously wasteful on water. And then you can dump chemicals in the toilet. And so we've just decided for now, we're just going to put wag bags in and we're just going to use it that way. And there's a little bit of gross element to that, but I think it's ultimately, it's going to be a little cleaner. It's going to be easier. And then we don't have to take it anywhere and dump it.
Have you ever actually done that before, by the way?
I have.
Hooked up, it's so gross, hooking up a trailer to a dump
It's
system. Or it
so
can
gross.
be. It usually reeks. Ugh.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all seen RV, right?
Right.
Have we all seen RV?
Yes.
It's going to blow.
Yeah,
So,
I could not. That's not something I'd almost rather just not ever use it. Just find a public bathroom somewhere. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, we got to take responsibility for things. And, that's one of the biggest things that we are not currently taking responsibility for. So, all right, get your wag bags. Got your wag bags here. Get your wag bags. We should all be using them.
Doesn't have to be the WAG brand, by the way. That's a brand name. I always forget that. WAG bag.
Yes, it is a brand name. So
I use the double duties myself. I'm a big double duty fan.
All right. Well, we're going to hand this back to our producer for our next and I think our last segment before we peace out.
Yes. So now for another round of overrated, underrated, I'm going to give you guys a couple items and you're going to tell me if they are overrated or underrated. The first up is sports sunglasses. So like your Oakleys, your big cycling sunglasses, skin tight.
You're talking about shields, eye condoms.
That's what they're called.
That's a weird.
That's what I just called them. Well, you said skin. You said tight. I just thought, So I don't know.
It's just an amazing image. I'm trying to put condoms on your eyes.
I can't get it.
Oh, there he is. You look like Neo a little bit.
I can't get it over the cornea.
Yeah,
I've got some Oakleys right here.
Are they actual Oakley? I've never owned a pair of actual Oakley.
I think
You
they
haven't?
are Oakley.
Oh my gosh. Boy. Justin, do you have a thought on this while I'm
Well, I mean, like I thought they were overrated until I started riding bikes all the time, and like I get so much crap in my eyes if I don't wear the biggest possible glasses that I can find, and I'll change the lenses out to clear on a day where I don't need it to be darkened and stuff like that. I can't fathom riding a bike without sports shades at this point. You can do it. You don't need to. I mean, you can wear regular sunglasses or something like that, but I'm kind of on team big giant sports glasses. I think it's nice to protect your eyes. Like, why not?
I will say that they're under. I mean, the question is over or under. So I will say they're
you're
underrated.
right. I'm sorry.
I think a lot of people think that they don't need them. I don't use them often now because I have prescription glasses. I have a pair of prescription glasses that are sunglasses, and then I have a pair of progressives, or not progressive, transitions. So light changing or darkness changing. And but like if you wear contacts, mandatory. And if it's humid, mandatory. I mean, they cover so much, but they vent so well. So yeah, underrated.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Costa brand glasses. I wear them like exclusively when I go fishing, and I would never wear these normally otherwise. I mean, the standard wraparound, I look like I'm driving a 18-wheeler when I'm wearing them. But I mean, they make everything so much easier. It just, definitely, I'm very, very underrated.
Mm-hmm. Since I started biking more, I learned firsthand why people would wear them. It's pretty clear when you're descending and your eyes are just drying out. But it is tough now that I wear a prescription.
I've even thought about getting them for surfing. They do make them for surfing, and you rarely see them, and usually on like really eccentric, kind of strange people in the water. But if you're out in the water in a place where the sun sets behind you or behind the on the horizon, whew.
I always wear sunglasses when I surf.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I even wear them when I body surf because my eyes are so sensitive to light.
Oh, yeah.
That I can't really go out without them, and so I've got a pair of floating with a strap on the back, and they're wonderful. They're great. I also have a Patagonia made it. It's I don't know if they still make it, but it's a surfing hat. It's like a bucket hat.
Those are great
with a strap underneath, and so those two things, I mean, really help with the sun. Yeah. My eye doctor, Bill Peterson, where I first met him, I did a story for Powder about this product that he invented. They were called Suntax, and it was a green tinted contact with no prescription element. It just protected your eye from UV.
Interesting.
And it was really weird to surf in those things and have it like feel like you were looking through sunglasses, but you weren't. There was nothing in front
Wild.
of you.
Yeah, that's wild. I've never heard of that.
He doesn't make. I don't think they really took off, but it was cool.
So next up is guided trips. Not like expeditions, but I think, Dad, you have been a guide on one of these trips in Morocco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like a photo trip where you go around different places. You might go on a hike or two as part of that. I have some friends who have led these as well. So guided trips.
Casa?
I don't. Gosh. I think I feel like I'm supposed to say underrated, but I've only been on like one or two, and I never seek them out. But I mostly because I'm not a huge fan of like small groups. If I don't know anybody, I'd rather not. I'd rather be lost or have a worse time on whatever adventure I'm doing than have to like make small talk with people I don't know.
Justin is the fan of the smallest group one.
Yeah. Yes. But I can see how that would be super useful. I mean, but I'm sure they're great. You should probably do them. I guess I'm gonna say underrated, even though I wouldn't seek them out myself.
No, you got to go with clearly you think they're overrated. Come on.
I guess so. I mean, I just feel like unless it's something super dangerous, I also
Or
just
if
really
maybe you just don't know.
figuring
Do you
out
not?
myself.
You could. It's okay if you don't have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've been on both sides of the equation, and I'm going to see that they are wildly underrated. I would hazard a guess that the vast majority of Adventure Journal listeners and readers do their own trips. But in my experience, and I'm like you, Justin, like small groups, I mean, unless I know people and want to be with that group, that just kill me now. And I've been on so many press trips in 40 years of this job, this career. And I mean, sometimes they're absolutely fantastic. You get a great group of people, and other times it's just a complete nightmare. But what I've also found is that, especially if you're seeking conditions, fishing, which I don't do, but you do, snow, rock art, you cannot beat local knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so, I tend to be independent to a fault and not wanting to pay for something like that. But when I've been in a situation where I've needed a guide or had a guide, man, they open you, especially if you really click with them, they will turn you on to so many things you never would have known and never would have found on your own. And so the idea of a guided quote unquote adventure travel trip, I don't know, go to India and see the Taj Mahal, no. But if you want to see a place in a really special way with a very tight group, I think it can be, eye-opening and even life-changing if you get the right guide. I mean, it can really, really have a profoundly positive impact on your experience.
Yeah, that makes sense, which is why I feel like I should say underrated, but I still don't think I would seek it out. In fact, I got invited to do a trip later this, or not. I know I wasn't invited. I saw an ad for like some Utah mountain bike thing, and I asked my best friend if he wanted to do it with me, and he's like, "Hell no, I don't want to go on a trip with a bunch of random people." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I don't really either. We'll just go do it
guide's
ourselves."
kind of like a fixer in a way too.
Yeah.
Which is can get you to the stuff that you just would never find on your own.
Well, you can't go on a surf trip without a guide. I mean, they're the ones taking you to waves. I mean, in some cases you can't get away from it. Well, you can go on some surf trips, but I mean, like boat trips or whatever, like you're up to the whim of the guide anyway. So sometimes you can't really
I
get
think
away
you
from
have
it.
to value too something. Do you want to increase your odds of getting the goods, or do you want to be independent?
Right.
Does your commitment or desire for independence and exploration and the joy of discovery on your own outweigh, wanting to have a more guaranteed likelihood of high quality waves or snow? Then fine. But, especially in another country too, going with a local, it's just invaluable.
Great. Okay. Next up, is bodyboarding.
Oh, way underrated. Way underrated.
Bodyboarding or body? You mean body surfing, or do you
No,
mean
I mean bodyboarding.
On like a boogie board.
Like a
Dude,
boogie
totally
Yes.
underrated.
well, both
What-
both way underrated.
way underrated. I any kind of I don't even stand up on half the waves I catch anymore. I'm a huge fan of just dicking around on whatever board I have. I like to ride waves on my knees now. I've lost all seriousness associated with surfing I've ever had. And I love bodyboarding. So much fun. It's just a blast. Body surfing is almost as much fun. Sometimes it's more fun. Great. Do anything you can do in the waves. Do it.
I would rather body surf or bodyboard than surf. All things being equal, I would rather surf. Give me a good wave, I want to surf. But everywhere, it's just the lineups are just ridiculous. You know, down here in Southern California, like, and I just that's kind of why I don't surf anymore. Is because I just don't want to deal with it. But in the summertime, at the beach below our house, man, I love body surfing.
So great.
I mean, it's just that hydrotherapy is just so much. It's just so much fun. And the thing too about bodyboarding or body surfing, like every single wave is fun. Mm-hmm. Every single wave you catch, even if it's just the drop and then you pound it and then you're back out, it's fun. And that's not the case when you're doing stand-up surfing.
Yep. And you can take bodyboarding as seriously as you want to. I mean, most of the world's most treacherous waves were discovered by bodyboarders and were pioneered by bodyboarders. I mean, those guys get incredibly gnarly. But I mean, like, it's just so great that like I can have fun on one. My 4-year-old daughter can have fun on one. I own 2 of them. I used to be kind of embarrassed about it, not at all anymore. I mean, there used to be such a huge divide. My gosh, I mean, surfing and bodyboarding,
they did.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, the reason I ask is because growing up, thinking of bodyboarding or feeling that bodyboarding was underrated in Orange County, you know, my best friend and I were primarily bodyboarders, and I think the thing that always was difficult for me about surfing was diving, getting past waves, and on a bodyboard with fins, I mean, the power you have compared to surfing, especially for diving, I always felt 10 times more nimble in the water, and I felt like I could pretty much catch any wave that was rideable with the power of fins, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's much easier. I mean, there's something special about standing up. I don't know what it is. I've thought about this a lot. I feel like I would maybe get 75% of the enjoyment from laying down or kneeling that I do from standing up, but I don't know why. But that's not to say it's not worth doing and it's still not super fun. I mean, I absolutely love it.
Here's the thing too about that. You just never feel bad about your performance.
No,
you know,
it's great.
You never regret like, oh, I didn't make that tube or whatever. I mean, I'll have so many surf sessions where I only caught 1 or 2 waves and then I like crapped out on the wave or whatever. And I come out and I, sometimes feel more frustrated than when I paddled out. You never feel that way, body surfing. It's like every wave is happy and there's no real pecking order. Everybody's the same. I mean, it's like it's the most egalitarian water sport probably that there is.
You're also much more close to the wave, which is cool. Like you see different parts of the wave and you feel much more in tune with it than you do when you're standing on it. It's a neat difference.
You can fit in much smaller tubes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So to get that experience of being inside a tube, kind of if it's 3 feet or whatever, it's great.
Yep. Get one.
Okay. Well, do you have any more for us? I think
No, that was your 3.
That was our 3.
I want to go
All
bodyboarding
right.
now. I'm all pumped.
Yep. All right.
Yeah,
So
I want to get one.
I poop in a bag.
Fitness, poop, bodyboarding, guiding.
Campfire.
Yes. Solid show. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around to the bottom of the cup. We are at subscribe2aj.com. You can follow us. You can like us. Please review us. And catch us next time on the AJ podcast. Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.